Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Constantia Nek Podcast. It's all things Two Oceans Ultramarathon. As usual, Shona is joining me again this week. Shona, how are you doing?
Yeah, good, Dev. Getting nervous, if I'm honest, but yeah, good. Excited to be here. Excited to help people get to the race line and run their best race.
If you don't mind, Shona, maybe let's just touch on you first for a sec. I know you say there that you're getting nervous. I know we're 3 weeks out from race day, which is extremely close. Where are you at the moment, training-wise? How are you feeling?
Yeah, good question, Dev. I mean, yeah, so qualified, 2 weeks ago, and but really, it took me a little bit longer to recover from that marathon than I thought it would. I gave myself a full week off running. But yeah, did a light cycle on the watt bike in the gym on the Thursday. Legs felt amazing after that, but then ran on the weekend after. So last weekend, just a short 30-minute run. But yeah, legs just weren't quite there yet. And that's just one of those things that I think we have to realize that, yeah, sometimes this recovery takes a little bit longer than you thought it would. And it's important to give yourself the time to do that. So for me, it took a little bit longer. I ran this past week as well, but very light, and I actually took all my intensity sessions out because the legs just didn't feel right. And downhill marathon sort of should have expected that. So yeah, didn't quite get the training in I really would have liked this past week, but again, I'd far, and this is something that we say all the time, like rather than carrying that accumulated fatigue, yeah, I was quite proud of myself for listening to our advice, because it's not often I always do that. So that was good. But yes, I mean, I'm nervous. I mean, it's going to be my 6th ocean. So I think the more of these you do, that doesn't get any easier. I'm still nervous. I still respect the race. But I'm excited. It's I love the race. I absolutely love the race. And I'm just excited to get out there and hopefully the training has done its bits. I mean, I've been consistent, and so that's really all I can ask for.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I know it's still 3 weeks out, but it's usually this time where I generally start getting excited about races and that, because it's also, I enjoy the prep phase, so the packing and the planning and all of that. So yeah, I can imagine. I'm going to throw extremely further forward here before we get into the actual meat of the podcast. It's probably old news now, but pretty recently, Cape Town Marathon announced that they had changed their dates to, I think it was sort of towards the end of May next year. And again, please, I know some of you are already thinking, geez, Dave, can we just get through this one first? But just to kind of throw forward a little bit, I've had a couple of questions already where people are saying, well, how does this affect things? And would I be able to run Cape Town Marathon if I've run Oceans next year? This is 2026. Just maybe your thoughts very quickly on that.
Yeah, I mean, I know there was a lot of perhaps negative connotations around Cape Town moving. I think it's a great move. I think it's a great move for Cape Town in terms of what they are looking to achieve in terms of the Abbott World Majors. Where that puts Oceans, I think is it's quite well placed in my opinion. It really depends where Oceans is next year. If it is in a similar sort of place that it was this year, so if it's the 5th of April, so the beginning of April, and then Cape Town's the end of May, that essentially gives you 6 to 8 weeks, nearly, not necessarily 8, 6 to 7 weeks between the two. And so I do think that it would be feasible for you to run a hard Oceans, maybe perhaps not necessarily race both of them very hard, but to run a hard Oceans and then to run a hard Cape Town. You can give yourself 2 to 3 weeks off after Oceans and then have a good, 4 to 5 weeks, perhaps depending on the dates, to then build up again for the marathon and carrying that nice base going in. But again, it depends on the dates. It depends on the, whether you're a novice or if this is your first Oceans or your first marathon. There's so many of those depends. But it did get me quite excited when I read about that, because then I thought, oh, well, what a great opportunity. Run Oceans and then, I don't know, probably have to rob a bank to fly down to Cape Town again. But at least, be able to go down to Cape Town again and run Cape Town Marathon. So I'm excited by it. But yes, I think it all depends on a number of factors. But yeah, let's chat about that next year, Dev, when it comes down to it, because we're still going to get through this year's one.
I'm always thinking way ahead. Sean, yeah, so to dig into it now, so we've mentioned we're 3 weeks out. Where should we be at the moment training-wise?
Yeah, so really your last big week of training is happening now, right? So you perhaps like me have come through your qualifier, and or you've been training for a while and qualified a while ago. So finally, the two groups are in the same place, right? So the last big week for both of those groups, not quite yet taper. So we've still got this big week to get through, but we're not quite in the taper. And so really this last kind of hurdle to get through, you might be feeling really tired. That's normal. Don't try and just push through that. My example of taking some extra rest days if need be, but yeah, really this is the last kind of hurdle, essentially. But the key thing here, guys, even if it is the last hurdle, is not to cram. And we see this all the time, is that people have now stressed. Maybe they, like me, perhaps missed out on their training last week because they were recovering, and now they're stressing. They're like, oh my gosh, I've got to get this training in. The really, really key, don't try and cram your long runs in. So if you did miss your long run last weekend or this weekend, this episode comes out, and obviously we've got the one coming up, don't put those all together in 1 week, because essentially, guys, the body doesn't understand a calendar week. It doesn't understand Monday to Sunday, right? It understands physiology, and all you're doing then is you're just overloading your physiology with more and more and more, and that's really going to put you at a risk of injury. And so yeah, it's really key that we don't cram. Okay, a lot of your training is done. Yes, this is the last big week, but we want to try and make sure that we're going into this training week as fresh and as well as we can. With this last long run, it really doesn't mean. Let me put it this way, all right? Not your whole race doesn't depend on this last long run. If for some reason, that the last long run doesn't go well, don't think that your whole Oceans is out of the window. It is about the work you've done consistently over these last 12 to 14 weeks, building those bricks on top of each other, right? And so your race is never going to depend on one run. It's going to depend on all of those blocks that you've put together. And in the same way, that often happens is so many people run this last long run, and then they're like, oh gosh, it's, I had such a bad run. And then they go into the race day feeling, confidence is knocked. And so don't feel that. It's essentially, this last long run you're doing in peak training. Okay. So we're wanting you to be a little bit tired. We haven't tapered you down. Your last long run is going to be very different to your race day. Your taper is still coming. You're going to freshen up. And so that's really, really important, just to note. And then lastly, just to note that this is, if you have found our podcast for the first time, and you heard us carry on about strength training, we obviously love strength training. This is not the time for you to start strength training if you've never done it before. If you have been doing some strength work, yes, please continue. We're not quite ready to reduce that or taper the strength work out. But if you haven't done strength work, now is not the time to start that. Okay. Now is also not the time to play around with any new nutrition or things like that. Don't go and buy a brand new pair of shoes that you've never run in before. If you do need a new pair of shoes, I need a new pair of shoes. I'm going to go buy the same make and model, essentially. So now's not the time for anything new. All right. So you should have practiced all your nutrition. You should have practiced all your gear. You've got this last long run to really play around with that, but don't make any massive changes unless absolutely necessary.
Sure, and I think that leads into pretty well. You're kind of saying not making changes and nothing new. Those things are all controlled. And when we're talking about running specific training, but outside of the running, in our sort of everyday lives and that kind of thing, what can we control? What should we be looking at the moment with the knowledge that we're only 3 weeks away? We're actually really close to race day now.
Yeah, definitely, Dev. I think the key thing is that you've done all this training, and the last thing you want to do is have something happen on race day that's not training related, that then ruins your race. And I'm going to touch on one thing that's really important in a bit, but the first two things that I'll touch on is staying healthy and staying injury free. Now, of course, we can't control that. Of course, that would be amazing, but you can put strategies in place to help prevent that you reduce the risk of injuries and help try and ensure that you don't get sick, right? So, we want to make sure that we're eating well. You want to make sure that you're trying to get in enough sleep. Try and stay away from big social engagements. I mean, I'm not saying don't be social, don't see your friends, but just try and avoid big things where, people carry bugs, right? I mean, I just also noticed in the gym the other day when I was training, just paying extra attention to wiping down the mat before I use it, washing my hands. I'm not carrying a hand sanitizer where I go. If you're traveling, wear a mask. I mean, I don't have children, and I know I joked about this before, but I know kids in nursery schools tend to just be, like 101 viruses. So just watch out for kids parties and things like that. And just really the goal is to try and stay healthy, to try and stay injury free. And so I mentioned this earlier, but don't cram your sessions in. That is going to be a big risk of injury and getting yourself injured before the time. And take a day here and there if you are feeling overwhelmed or perhaps not recovering well enough. So majority of the training has been done, and so I'd rather less is more in this time. So really, really important. And then quite a big one is don't take any kind of silly risks. So if you get invited to a paddle tournament and you never really play paddle or tennis or I don't know, roller hockey or whatever it is, like just don't take any of those silly risks. I mean, especially if that's not something you do. The last thing we need is a twisted ankle or a sprained ankle or a knee that's gone. So yeah, this is really, really key. Don't take any of those kinds of silly risks. I mean, I had to actually, and the reason I'm saying this, I actually had to remind myself, I said this to Dev before the podcast, is that I was going to invite him and a whole bunch of our friends around to a paddle tournament next weekend. And then I was like, no, that's silly. The last thing, and I'm so competitive, the last thing I need is to have a sprained ankle. And so yeah, really, really key. I think we want to almost wrap you in bubble wrap for the next 3 weeks and get you to race day as fresh and illness free and injury free as possible.
Sean, you say we can't control it, and I mean that's the reality, unfortunately. What happens if something does happen? I mean, we've now taken paddle out, we've taken extreme sports out, we're not having social engagements, but I walk to my car and I accidentally twist my ankle on the step on my way to my car. At this stage now, being 3 weeks out, going into our last big week of training, what should I be panicking about? Should I be panicking? How do I approach this now this close to the race?
If you're over 50 and want to recover from sessions faster, run pain and injury free, and improve your endurance, then be sure to join Lindsay and I for our upcoming Faster Beyond 50 Masterclass. In it, we'll show you how we helped a 70-year-old run a 47-minute, 18-second 10K and how you can take those exact same principles and apply them in your training. Simply scan the QR code that's on screen right now or click on the link in the description below to save your seat in the training now. We look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, the number one thing for me would be to get that injury sorted then. Accidents happen and I understand that. And I know, as I say this, don't panic. But I know that's hard, but don't panic. Your majority of your training has been done. And again, it's never just that one run. And so if something does happen this week, or if you do get sick this week, get that sorted now, right? So we've got 3 weeks, right? And so if you think about it that way, rather take the time now to get that sorted than carry that on and all the way to race day. If you try and push through, and that's what people always try and do, is that in this phase, like, oh, well, Shona said this is my last big week. I've got to get the training done. No, right? It's your last big week if you are injury-free and illness-free. If you are sick and injured, get to the physio, get to the doctor, take time off and get that sorted now. That would be my main advice. Yeah, I'd far rather you take 2 or 3 days off now than carry that into race day, and then you arrive on race day with that niggling injury. You still have that chest infection or whatever it is. Rather stop and get that sorted out. Majority of your work has been done.
Cool. So maybe just a point, or I'm going to just add something in here. I know you had mentioned earlier just about sort of confidence as well in that last long run and those as well. I think just on that, something I've seen often happen is people also at this stage now thinking they can maybe go and try and do a quick race this weekend. So 10K or a 15K race, sometimes even a half marathon. You know what it's like, especially up here in Gauteng. We've got races every weekend. Just quickly, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, don't do it. The short answer, don't do it. No, I mean, yes, it's, it is nice to go out and turn the legs quite, a little bit. But at the end of the day, we're training for I say half marathon. We're training for an ultra marathon, 56 Ks. Cool. Yes, going out and running a hard 10K is going to give you nice confidence. But what if it doesn't? What if you land up pulling your hamstring in that race? What if again, like, I'd far rather you get to the race as fresh as possible and perhaps even slightly undercooked, and ensuring that you are as fresh as you can. If we go and race at 21 or something like that, yeah. What if if the day goes wrong? you're then going to go into Oceans with a little bit of a confidence knock, and we don't want that. So again, that is something that's within your control. So I would rather say just tick over, stick to the training plan. Don't try and do anything that's out of the ordinary here.
Cool, thanks. All right, then I think sort of the golden nugget from today, and it's something that I know most people are probably thinking about already, have been probably thinking about for the last 12 to 16 weeks. But in terms of goal times, race day sort of targets, I think now is really the time to take what we've done, start thinking about those. Give us your take on how to go about doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is key because we want to set a goal time for Oceans that's realistic, right? I mean, I would love to run a Sainsbury medal, but I'm not never going to get there, but I'm definitely not going to do that in 2025, right? And so we want to set race expectations that are realistic, because that's going to affect you on the day. And I mentioned there's that third thing I want to speak about. I'm going to touch on that later, because if we don't have a realistic goal, we can't really get that plan of our race day sorted out. So first things first is setting a realistic target. And we tend to base this target for Oceans off our marathon time. So ideally, like for me, as an example, if you've qualified recently, I might use that marathon qualifier as my way to then work out what my Oceans time would be. If you haven't run a marathon recently, you qualified ages ago, we would then perhaps take a recent time trial or a recent 5K time trial or 10K race, and then almost work out what your marathon time would be, and then as a result work out what your feasible Oceans time would be. And again, just to reiterate, the reason we want a realistic goal time is because the third thing that's really going to affect your results on the day is how you pace your race. Right. So if you go out and just go back and listen to last week's episode. We did a nice long deep dive into the race and the route and how to tackle it at different points. But if you go out too fast on race day at Oceans, you are going to blow it, no matter what training you've done. If you've had the perfect build up, you might be winging it a little bit, but really, if you pace this race well, you can run it really, really well. And so what we recommend is a pacing chart. So I mean, I have one of them over here, just to show you. I mean, I don't really want to give you the ins and outs of that, but yeah. So we put together these pacing charts, and they're there to guide you and to keep you in check on race day. You don't want to have done all this training and then ruin it by just racing the first 21 and dying up Constantia Nek. And so I highly, highly recommend that you get one of these pacing charts. They just sit around your wrist next to your watch. So I'll just show you that quickly. Sorry if I've got one hand to do it. Putting a bracelet on my own has been tough, but just to give you an idea, they're sitting around your watch. And so you can keeps you in check with your timing as you're going through the race. And so if this is something that you want to get, you can scan the QR code that's on the screen now, right? And you can pre-order a pacing chart. And if you're listening to this and not watching it on YouTube or something, you can also just click on the link that's in the description or the show notes as well, to then get access to that pacing chart. Devia, you want to go ahead? Yep.
Yeah, no, so I think just to maybe add to that, so Sean's talking about using past other time trials or marathons to calculate, and that's if you've got a preconceived notion then of what your goal time is, get hold of that QR code. But just a reminder that we will also be at the expo. So I know there are a couple of people that might think about it now. They go, okay, cool, I think I've worked it out. I think I know what I should be, but I might be sitting on the fence somewhere, or it tells me I should be running this, but I think I can run this. Come and have a chat to us. So whether you're a Coach Parry member and you can jump into our forums and chat to the coaches, or pop in at the expo, we will be printing these pacing charts on demand as well. So come and have a chat to the coaches. Let's discuss, let's figure out what's right for you, what the right goal is, and then we can print that pacing chart for you there at the expo. Obviously, the pre-orders just helps get things out that you don't have to stand in queues on the day. You can just come and collect. But yeah, just feel free to also come and have a chat to us at the expo itself.
Yeah, I think it's key, Dev. That's if you don't know what you want to go for, come and chat to us. And I just want to mention around this pacing chart as well, is that we haven't taken 56 kilometers and your goal time and just done the maths there and just gone, cool, that's your average pace through the race. You have to then run at you want to finish, so you have to run at 7:30 per kilometer just to finish. We haven't done that. What we've done with this pacing chart is taken the elevation into account. So the way you'll see then for the first perhaps half of the race, we've adjusted the pace accordingly, that we want you to slow down a little bit. And then as you start climbing, we take the hills into account and we adjust the pace accordingly there as well. And so it's really, really good, because now you're not just guessing, like going, okay, well, should I walk here? Should I walk up Constantia Nek here? Am I going to lose time by walking? We've taken all of that guesswork out for you and allowed you to then be able to just have this on your wrist to guide you with that. I mean, just as an idea, it was a funny story before. It wasn't for Oceans, it was for a marathon. But I once wrote my pacing down on my arm, and I sweat it. Everything just disappeared. And then my maths is terrible. And it was for New York Marathon. And I remember going, okay, Shona, you've only got one more set of 6Ks to go. And I had 2 more to go, just because maths goes out the window when you are running. And so I've then also started to stick it in like a little Ziploc bag on my number. And then one day that tore off. So then I was like, okay, now I have to do more maths. So this is great because it sits on your wrist. They're waterproof. They're really, really awesome. I mean, I've worn one of these for 4 days as a test, slept with it, showered with it. And so they really are good. So I highly recommend that. That's, you don't then have to do any thinking on race day. The only thing you have to think about is right foot, left foot, right foot, up Constantia Nek, and getting to UCT. So yeah, really, really love them. If you want to pre-order, if you know what time you want to run, click on the QR code or scan the QR code or click on the link that's in the description to pre-order. But as Dev mentioned, we will be there printing on demand times. I mean, guys, if you want to run a 6:12 Oceans, we will be able to print that for you specifically. So yeah, so come and chat to us at the expo as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. So guys, we will, just to throw forward to next week, we will be going into specifics around that pacing chart. Sean, maybe I can ask you, I mean, what will we be discussing as a quick overview for next week's episode, going into the start of the taper?
Yeah, so as Dave said, we'll be showing you how to use the pacing charts, how to factor that in. And then I think perhaps really importantly is the taper, right? So we will go into different tapering strategies. A lot of people think that taper means, oh, cool, my training's done. I'm now going to get to sleep in every morning, but it's not that. There's specific ways that we taper, and I don't want to go into the details of that. We'll go into that next week around how to make the taper so effective that on race day you are fresh and ready to go. We'll tap into a little bit around hydration strategies as well, and just how to really this old concept of carbo loading. We'll touch on that, and is that important? But yeah, just really the important things around the taper and the mileage you should be doing, the strength training you should be doing at that point in time. So yeah, so next week is definitely going to be a winner. Definitely tune into that.
Yeah, definitely, guys. And next week, obviously, we'll, like I said, starting the taper. It means we're 2 weeks out. So those last 2 episodes are going to be critical, because from there we'll also be discussing the actual race week and race day prep itself. So yeah, stay tuned. We are almost at the end of the series. I can't believe it's happened so quickly, and like the weeks have gone. It's nearly race day. Like Shona said, last big week, guys. Hang in there. Stay tough. Keep the confidence up. We'll go into that taper pretty soon, and you guys will start feeling hopefully a lot better. Sean, thanks for everything. Thanks for your time and your knowledge again today, as usual. We'll see you guys again in the next one. Take care, everyone. Bye now.
Cheers, guys.